Very good afternoon to one and all. Uh, Welcome to this sixth day of the workshop on research methodology. And I'm very happy to introduce you all to today's resource person, Professor Dr. M.S. Padmini ma'am. Welcome you ma'am. I'm really very pleased to introduce ma'am to you all. Madam has been a former professor and head, Department of Education, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, and she has also been she has been a former professor and director at the Center for Educational Studies, Indian Institute of Education, Pune, Maharashtra. She has done BSc, B.Ed and 4-year integrated program, and she has obtained PhD in education. Her field of specialization include educational psychology, language education, science education, environmental education, and ICT for education. She has guided 26 students for MPhil, 16 students for PhD, and two PhD students are currently working under her guidance. She has headed 10 minor research projects UGC, which have been completed. 4 major UGC projects have been completed under her guidance. She has a very long teaching experience of 28 years at the PG level and 6 years at the undergraduate level. Madam has a total 30 years of administrative experience. She had been the professor and director at the Center for Educational Studies, Indian Institute of Education, Pune, and also the professor and head Department of Education, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. She has been a member of NCT Regulation and Curriculum Committee for 4-year integrated course curriculum from 2014 to 15. She has also been a member coordinator of NAC in peer teams for Northern, Western, and Southern regions for colleges of education and for many colleges and 2 universities. She has also been Master Trainer Globe for HQ Washington DC, MHRD New Delhi at national level. He has been instrumental in curriculum construction for B.Ed, M.Ed, MPhil in education, MPhil in women's studies, and 4-year integrated BA, B.Ed, and BSc B.Ed at national level NCTE and in universities in Maharashtra. She has been a NAC assessment member coordinator for colleges in education and universities of northern region. Madam had organized 26 state level conferences, seminars and workshops, uh, 43 national level conferences, seminars and workshops, and 10 at international level conferences, seminars and workshops. She has 55 research publications in journals, periodicals, and conference proceedings, and 7 publications in book chapters in books which she has co-authored. Madam has got many honors and awards. She had been awarded with JRF, NCERT New Delhi, Merit Fellowship, BSc Education, Master Trainer for the GLOBE Program, Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India, and GLOBE, Washington, DC, USA, and Master Trainer for Information and Communication Technology, NCTE, New Delhi. She has also been a Master Trainer for Intel India, Teach to the Future program. And I'm really very honored to have you, madam, as a resource person for today's session. Welcome you, madam. Over to you.
Madam, your microphone is mute. Ma'am, your mic is mute.
Hello, now can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. I'll just... First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this program for inviting me for this, for sharing research reporting among the participants. I'll just begin now. Uh, this is about research reporting, why and how. This research reporting, I'll be doing it in two parts. The first one will be about the research paper writing, and the second will be about the dissertation or thesis writing. First of all, I would like to acknowledge certain people and organizations uh, with regarding to this particular presentation. This research report writing, actually some of the some organization like the Hindu, NAC and NCT, UGC, and some of these organizations, they found that in India, people in social science especially, people do a lot of good research, but their report writing is very poor in the case of social sciences. Hence, they formed a particular committee of the experts from all over India, and they prepared some material which was shared by NAC to the IQAC members, different researchers. When I get an opportunity to share this particular PPT. So, and actually this particular PPT, we can always, you can use it, you can modify it, and you can add on to it. So this is how I'll be sharing with some of my experiences. Now, this is the 6th day and the last day of this particular program, particular program. And most of the things I'll be saying is a repetition of all those things that people have said before. But today what I'm going to do is actually to present a format of a good research paper reporting. So if there are repetitions, just excuse me. And one thing is each expert explains a particular thing from his experience and from his point of view, by the research experience he has had on his own, as well as the experiences that he has obtained while guiding other research students. So there are different forms of research reporting. One is dissertation or a thesis. We call it a formal, institutional, and assessed. We call it, it is formal for the simple reason because dissertations and thesis is submitted to an institution, to an organization, a formal, hence it is formal. And in the institution, like you can undertake a research only when the institution approves your proposal, a research proposal, and you should be a student at the institution called a and whether your research research is worth doing for a particular degree. It could be for MAd, MPhil, or PhD. So it is very formal, and it is institutional. As I said, it's institutional bodies are there, which it could be the PhD research, it could be the research committee, the BUTR, who deal with this particular course, research presentation. And it is a dissertation or the thesis is a research document which is submit, and it is assessed by the research experts. By the pass, then you get the particular degree. Hence, the one form of research reporting is a dissertation or a thesis, and dissertations are usually for the MAd and MPhil level, and the thesis is for a PhD. Again, it is formal and peer reviewed. Reason it is formal because
Madam, you're not audible, ma'am. Ma'am, you're not audible. Ma'am, your microphone is mute.
Yeah, sorry. अभी mute किया. Hello.
Yes, ma'am,
Can
you
you
are
hear me
audible
now?
now. Yes, ma'am, can I request you? I think there is a weak
Hello.
connect. Hello, ma'am, can you hear
Hello.
us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am, can you hear
Thank
us?
you. Thank you. There was a little problem.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, I can and can.
Ma'am, madam, sorry to interrupt. Madam, if you please switch off your video, we can save the bandwidth so your voice will be clear because your voice is breaking in between.
Disturbance.
Madam, madam, can you
Yes.
please
1 second.
switch off your video?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am, now. I think your video is off now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Ma'am, sorry,
Okay.
your
So
video is still on.
can you hear me? Actually,
Yes,
sharing.
we can hear you.
Yeah, you can see. Okay. Video. Okay. Slideshow. Okay. Now
Madam,
can you hear me and see?
yes,
Okay. I'm very sorry.
ma'am, just a
Okay.
request. Madam, just a small
Yes.
request. If you please switch off your
Yes.
video.
Want me to switch off the video? Switch off the video.
Yes, we can save the bandwidth. Yeah.
Start with. Okay. Achha, now you can see and
No,
hear.
now, but your voice is clear now.
Okay, I'll go ahead then.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
there are different forms of research reporting. One is the dissertation and thesis, which I was discussing, which is formal, institutional, and assessed whenever the research is submitted. And research paper publication in research journal, it's again formal and it is peer reviewed. We use the word formal because these research publications, when we submit to a particular research journal, they have an editorial board and they have an advisory committee who go through whatever is submitted, whether it is worth publishing in their particular research and
Madam, you're not audible.
cannot be a part of a research review, review of related literature in a thesis or a PhD, in a thesis or a dissertation, because this is very informal. So when we say it is a research-based article, it means that somebody has conducted a research and it has been accepted. It could be your PhD research. And like one of my students had done some research on nutrition, and this particular there was something which was necessary to be shared to the public regarding the nutrition of a girl child, and this was published in a newspaper for public awareness. So this is informal. Nobody assesses what is what is being nobody checks whether it is right or wrong, whether it is correct or wrong. So okay, next. Okay. Now, research paper writing and reporting. Why? Why should we this thing write a research paper? Why don't we just do the research and keep quiet? Because when we do that and we do not disseminate, what happens is the whole activity of research and the result of research goes waste. So it is very essential that we always share or disseminate the new discoveries that we make. So if we do not disseminate the new discoveries, many other people will be doing similar research to find a solution to the problem. And it will be a lot of repetition of research and is of no use to the world. So when we disseminate the result of our research, it is helpful for other people in the same area to know that already the result has come and we can do further research instead of repeating the same research. Now, what is research? Research is nothing but finding a solution to a research problem. So there's no sense in having repeatedly finding out solution to the same problem. So research is something which is novel, related to that particular subject, a new discovery that you're making and contributing to that particular subject. Hence, it is essential to disseminate new discoveries. Now, that is why we publish the research papers either in the research journal or through our dissertation and a PhD thesis. Now, we also do research reporting for the reason to initiate further research. So once we disseminate our new discoveries, nobody will repeat the same research, but what they do is they know now this is what has been found out regarding this particular problem in this particular area, and then they go ahead with further research to find out new problems and new discoveries related, and then they enrich that particular subject. Now, the research reporting is also done to organize one's ideas. Now, here it means that when we do research, we do it very systematically, starting with identifying a particular problem and going through all the steps of research in a very logical manner and coming to a proper conclusion. And when we write a research paper, it is essential that we also write in the logical form in the same steps. So this helps a new person reading your research paper to think the way you thought while you were doing your research, and then he can understand how you have gone ahead with your research and how you have found out the result of your research, a solution to your problem. Now, the research paper reporting is also done to publicize among peers. Now, publicizing among peers here it means that when we do research in environmental education, we have to publish in the environmental education journal itself. So when we publish in an environmental education journal, it is those researchers and those professors working on environmental education who is going to read it. So when we publicize among the peers, they know that you have discovered something, a solution to a particular problem in that area, and then so they will not repeat the research, and then they will go and do further research in that particular area. For them, it will be a review of related literature, whatever we are publishing. So this research reporting is also done for career requirement. So all of us know that to become from an assistant professor to become a associate professor, or from an associate professor to become a full professor, we required certain number of publications, so number of people you have guided for your PhD, MPhil, etc. So as a part of career requirement, it is essential for research, writing and reporting or publishing. Now, research paper writing and reporting is also it's a very prestigious, is very prestigious too. Now, for prestige and credit also, people do research and they publish. Like prizes are because prizes are given, awards are given, and recognition is associated with it. Like even in a conference, when a research paper is presented, the best research paper gets the award. The best research paper is awarded to a person. And all of us know about the Nobel Prize, and there's a lot of money involved because of the credit. You are the best researcher in the whole world when the Nobel Prize is declared. So research has a lot of prestige, social prestige, and among not only among the people, in the society, and also among the experts in that particular area. Hence, people do research paper writing and reporting. Now, research paper. Research paper writing and reporting, for whom do we do it? For peer group interaction. Peer group interaction, when we publish a paper in a journal, what happens is people do discuss. Suppose somebody is working on a research project related to our paper which is published, definitely all those people are going to discuss on it, and then they may change the procedure. They may, those are struggling to achieve a particular result, they may change the procedure of research so that it gives a direction to them. So for peer group interaction, the reporting is very essential. For public consumption of the findings, like I said, for public consumption of the finding here, like if you have done a research which is related beneficial to the public, then it is good that you publish it in a newspaper, and so that the society will benefit. Now, whenever any research is done, all of us know that research is done for two purposes. The one purpose of doing research is to enhance the body of the knowledge of that particular subject. That is, your research should be contributing to a new knowledge. It could be a fact, it could be a theory. For theory building, could be a theory building entitles that you have to have a major project, and then you will be contributing for theory building of a particular subject. For public consumption, another reason for doing research is it should be useful for the society. How is it going to be useful? Whenever we evaluate a particular thesis, a particular research paper, or when we evaluate a dissertation or a thesis, two questions the evaluator is supposed to be answering: whether this particular piece of research is contributing or enhancing the body of research, body of the subject pertaining to that particular research. And the second question is, how is it going to help the society? Is it going to benefit the teachers or the students or the public? Whichever aspect this particular research is dealing with. So these are the two reasons why do we do research. Hence, if we do research, then we have to publish it. Like generally what happens is, the same example I give every time when I make a presentation on this particular topic. If we do not, like for the example is the radio waves, the discovery of radio waves. The radio waves was discovered by Bose in India. But what happened is he never publicized it. He did not publish it. He kept the result to himself. Meanwhile, Marconi, who was working on radio waves, he published it in a conference and then published it in a journal, and he got the credit of discovery of radio waves. In spite of the fact that Bose had discovered, then it was revealed. So sharing and reporting is very, very essential if we are doing research. Now, research paper writing and reporting, where do we do it? It is done in research journals, then it is in the written form. We write, then how do we write in a research journal? Now, what are the care that we should take when we publish in a research journal? When we write in a research journal, what we have to see is whether the research we are doing whether that particular research journal deals with the research we are interested in and we are doing it. Then we have to see that the format of the research, format of the paper presented in those research journals. So what we suggest is go through the old journals, research journals, and see the format that they are using and prepare your research report in the same format so that they will accept it. Otherwise, it will come back to you and then they will ask, please write it in this particular format, or they may not accept it at all. To prevent that, it is always advisable that we go through the research journal, previous research journals, and then write or report that particular piece of research that you have done accordingly as per their requirement. So research journals we publish in the written form. We also have, when we do research, we also present our research in the conferences, in seminars and symposium. In conferences, we do the presentation orally. We also present in the seminars orally, national seminars, international conferences, international symposium. Here we do make the presentation orally, but we also, to make, to be accepted to present orally, there is the condition. You have to prepare an abstract and send it to the organizers of the conference or the seminar or the symposium. And what they do is they will see whether your title and your abstract is fit for the journal, whether it is worth, whether it is maintaining the quality of that particular conference. If it is of good quality, and they will allow you to go ahead with that particular research topic and the research work. Otherwise, they will not accept it for presentation in the conference or the seminar or the symposium. So you are supposed to submit abstract, the topic and the abstract to the conference organizers. Then after that, you have to go ahead, you have to follow. These days, it becomes a little more easy than the earlier days because they give us a pro forma. You have to fill the number of words. They have whatever number of words they want, they will take, and the rest, if you have written extra, it gets cut off. Then you have to present this particular abstract or the paper in the number of words that they desire. Every aspect of the paper is as per their want. They will be it will be controlled by using a pro forma that we'll be filling in for various steps of research reporting. Similarly for the seminars and the symposium. I hope all of you know the difference between a conference, a seminar, and a symposium. Okay, we'll discuss later if necessary. Otherwise, I'm sure you know the difference among all these three. Now, essential elements of a research paper. Now, all of you know all these things. I'm sure you know all these things for the reason that for the last 5 days, most of the people have covered everything in it. But I will be repeating it for the purpose of presentation of this particular paper. The essential concepts was discussed by Dr. Kavita Salunke ma'am, and I heard the whole lecture. So it will be a lot of repetition, I'm sure, but I will do it as per my experience. Now, the essential elements of a research paper or the structure of format. As I told you, this particular format was decided by the experts in India who were appointed by the UGC, NAC, and Tata Institute of Social Sciences, the Hindu paper, and many organizations to improve the quality of the presentation of a research paper. So I think by and large, we have to stick to this particular format, and with the slight differences, as expected by the research journals, and they will let you know about it. Okay, there's always a title for your research paper. Now, there's always a title, and you have an abstract, and the keywords are presented. I'll go a little in detail a little later. And there is an introduction following the abstract and review of related literature and researches. How do we write an abstract? Why do we write an abstract, and how do we write an abstract? An abstract is a summary of the content, strict word limit. Now, when we write the abstract of the, why do we have to write an abstract at all? An abstract is written in a research paper because whenever, remember when all of us were reviewing literature for our own research, what did we do? We went through the various research journals, and we are not going to read every research paper on the whole. What we do is we read the abstract. If it pertains to our, directly pertains to our research problem, what we do is then we go ahead and read the whole paper. So abstract is summary of the contents of that particular paper. Now, introduction in strict word limit. It is a journal who is going to tell you whether you have to write it in 20 words or in 50 words or in 100 words. So the strict limit is determined by the journal itself. Or it could be, if it is for a conference paper or for a seminar paper, again, the abstract, the strict word limit is there. They give a pro forma and your word gets cut off if you write too much. Now, introduction is the explanatory section at the beginning, lays out the main idea, draws the reader to the article. So what the students generally ask the question, how long should the introduction be? What should go in the introduction? Now, the introduction again is the explanatory section at the beginning. So what do we have to say? We have to write out the main idea. This is you, when you write the main idea, what does your research pertain to? So it could be your objectives, it could be the objective, the purpose of your research is there, and then how you go about doing this research, and why have you chosen this particular research, and why it is useful to the society, why it is essential to do. See that these are the main things pertaining to that is included in the introduction, and you have to write in such a way, in concise words, which draws the reader to the article. If the words are unnecessary words are used, and if it is not concise, nobody will read your research paper. So it is the abstract and the introduction is meant to grasp the reader's attention and provide a concise overview of the research paper. Review of literature and researchers. Okay, now I would like to say a few things related to what is literature and what is researchers. Many of you know this. I know that many of you know this, but still I would like to make a slight distinction between the two. Some thesis and in some of the thesis or the dissertations, they write in the second chapter review of literature and leave it as it is. But I think it is good if you write both literature and researchers, for the reason literature is all that deals with material that is published in the books. Okay, there are two types of literature which can be easily identified. Literature is something that I like. For example, if I want to write a book on globalization, and if I have a right ideology or a left ideology, I belong to the righteous ideology, what I will do is I'll write a book on globalization, wherein with my experiences and my expectation, with my view or my experience, what I would be writing is all the aspects dealing with pro-globalization. That is how globalization is very useful to the society, how it is beneficial to the country, etc. I can write a book. And it is right. You have a right to write what is the beneficial aspects of globalization. That is, you can write a book based on your thinking process. Okay. Now this is nothing but your deductive thinking. Now you can also write books after doing research. That is, after doing your scientific research, after you do your research, it could be a dissertation or a thesis. and then you can write a book on your thesis. So here what happens is, it is not your independent deductive thinking. Here, when you write a book on globalization after doing research, now we, as all of us know, that as researchers we cannot be biased or prejudiced. Okay, I may belong to a left ideology where where I do not accept globalization is going to be beneficial to the society. So so if I'm a researcher, then I cannot have, even if I have belong to a left ideology or a right ideology, I have to do research on globalization. I have to see whether I have to find out from the people, from the books. I have to read books on pro-globalization. I have to read books that is published on anti-globalization. And also I have to collect data from from the society, from different sources, and find out whether globalization is useful or not. The current data, a survey has to be done, and then whatever the findings are from the literature as well as my scientific research, all these together will form the conclusions of my research. So that is the reason why when we write research of literature, review of related literature, what we have to be careful is whether we are writing the whether we are reviewing literature which is based on scientific findings or based on the ideology of people. And they have a right for their ideology, and we have to know the different, how people think in society regarding a particular aspect. So whatever your research topic is, there are many books people have written which may not be of scientific value, but then it is a thought of a person, his experience. Another example I would like to give at this juncture is, like, I have worked in the Department of Education for nearly 27 years or 30 years. Now, during that time, there's another professor who has worked in the same department for another 27 to 30 years. If that particular teacher writes about all the good experiences she had during her working in this department, her book will be all about the good workings, all the good experiences of the department. That is how good the education department is. Suppose I write a book on all the bad experiences. All of us know every department, every institution has good and bad. There'll be good experiences and bad experiences. Suppose I decided to write all the negative aspects of the department so that somebody will read and improve it. Suppose there is a book on that. Now somebody, actually a researcher doing research on the Department of Education, suppose he wants to collect some data, he has to read the bad experiences of the teacher in her book, on the good experience of the teacher she has written in the book, and the bad experiences of another teacher who has written in her book. And then you have to find out exactly what it is by your scientific procedure, and only then you can write about the Department of Education. So this is what I mean by literature. There is books that are written based on the experiences of people or their ideology, their way of thinking. We have to be very careful as researchers. When we do review, we have to know exactly, and you have to specify in your research paper or in your thesis what type of literature you have reviewed. And researchers are nothing but all the researchers that are scientific research that people have conducted and they have reported. Either it could be in the journals, or it could be it could be published in their book. After they do their PhD, some people do publish in the book form. So researches that are published in journals or in the books, it could be even the research reports that are there in the institution, like UGC, ERIC reports are there. They are all major and minor research projects. Even the project reports are nothing but researches. So when we do review of literature and researches, if we can, this subtle difference, if you can keep in mind, I think we can have a very rich review of literature and researches. Okay, this distinction one has to make. Now, when we do this review of literature and researches, we have to survey of significant literature published on the theme, area, or topic. Now, the theme is a broad theme like environmental education. The area could be the population, the pollution, and the uh, topic could be water pollution, related to a topic related to water pollution. So from the theme of environmental education to the area of pollution, and then coming to the specific topic dealing with the water pollution in a specific area. This has to be you have to mention this. You have to review all this, not just related to the topic. That is the reason why when you will find that when you read the review, you have something we write related review and unrelated, directly related review and indirectly related review. So we also there are different ways of classifying and presenting the literature and review, like researches that are done abroad, researches that are done in India. So, and there are different ways, whether researches that are, whether they are all project reports, you can classify it as per your need of that particular problem. Sometimes your problem could be having many variables. If there are more than two more variables, again the review of literature will deal with a particular variable in first instant and then come to the self. For example, a research problem is that is dealing with motivation and interest. So all the research related review literature and researchers will be dealing with the motivation first, and then you come to the research. You cannot make a mess of the whole thing by mixing up different things as and how you get it. Yes, you collect your research review literature and researches as and how you get it, but you have to present it in a correct way for people to understand. Your internet connection. Okay. Can you still hear? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
I was a little worried. It showed that there's a connectivity problem. Okay. Now, another very important aspect when we do review of literature and researches is, when we write that is, we have to cite and reference range of authors correctly and concisely. Now, citing has, when you write it, if you have quoted a particular person, or from a particular book, what you're supposed to do is immediately write the author's name and the year of publication, and quote it immediately after that particular quotation, and that whatever you have cited has to come in the references at the end of that particular paper or in a thesis. So the citation is very important. And giving the reference of the citation later on, a range of authors, and it should be very correct and it should be very concise. Now, why do we have to write review of literature and researches in a particular research paper or a dissertation or a thesis? Okay, this is done to identify gaps in this is done to identify gap in research. Now, when we are working on a particular topic, what we do is we have to go through the whole literature. Like as I said earlier, if we do not publish a particular paper, and so what happens is somebody has already done the research and the finding is there. If we do not do if we do not go through the literature, you're doing the same research again and you're trying to publish it. Remember one thing: once a research is done and a solution is found to the problem and it is published to the and it is known to the whole world, you cannot repeat it. What if you repeat it? It is not said to be a new discovery. So research is always finding out the new truths. So whatever nobody knows in the world, you're going to find out. So you cannot repeat it. So what we do is, when we go to, like my area of research could be environmental education. So what I do is I go through all the researches that are there in environmental education and I identify a gap in research, but somebody has not done in this particular area. I can take up this research, this particular research problem, and then we can go ahead with it. Now, research we do a review of literature and researches as a part of the debate. Debate is what, when you research scholars or the research professors working that particular area, we do the review and then we say what we may discuss about, we may debate about the procedure used there, the tools that are used. Is could we then the debate could be could a better tool have been used for this particular topic? Could they use a particular better procedure for this? These are the points of debate you can do after going through the research research review and the literature review. Now, this review of literature and researches also provides a context and a perspective. Provides a context, like people are doing research in a particular context, like uh, in a particular context or a perspective. Now, one thing we should remember is whenever we take up a research topic, it should be of current value. People doing research and it has no societal value is not given much unless it builds up a body of knowledge. That research has no value at all. So the context should be, you have to the context has to be clearly mentioned. Now, context comes when we go through the trends of research. We see that when you do the review, we always, in the end of the review part, we always write the trend of research. Now, in the last, during the 50s, what type of researches were conducted, what type of tools they had used, and what was the necessity to do the research during the 50s in that particular area. Similarly, in the 1960s and 70s, so you get a perspective how the growth of the subject has taken place. We come to know, when you know the context in which the people have done previously researches, we know the perspective, we get a correct perspective of now what is the problem that is there in the society pertaining to that, like environmental project, environmental education, environmental researches that were done. A lot of research were done during the 8th 5-year plan, when after the Rio conference and other conferences that took place. In the 8th 5-year plan, we started doing the research. A lot of researchers, education and research were done because there was a problem in the environment. So we have to say the perspective could be, the context could be, it could be a social context, it could be an educational context, it could be a social context, it could be a political context. If the context is, we do research as per the requirement of the subject as well as the requirement of the country. We have to do we are doing research to find solutions to problems that are existing in society. Hence, we have to mention the context and the perspective. Reviewing literature helps us to find out in which context the people have done and in which perspective they have done. And we also get a particular perspective how we have to go ahead with the research, using what most appropriate tool, most appropriate procedures that are required for our particular research. Hope I'm not very fast or too slow. Now, the essential elements of a research paper, the structure. Now we go ahead with the purpose and objectives of the research paper or research questions. Now, in social sciences, they write research questions, but in education, generally we write the objectives of the research paper, research. Now, the difference between the research, the purpose of the research, we have to write. Purpose of the research, we have to video call.
Ma'am, you are
Purpose
audible.
of the research.
Yes,
Sorry.
you are audible. Please go ahead. Yes.
Okay. I'm touching that actually. The purpose of the research, we have to write the aim of the research, why you took up that research, and then the objectives of the research. Now, remember, objectives are always statements. Now, if you go through any of the research books, you will know how objectives have to be written. Like, it should be in the form of a statement, and the objective should be very specific. You cannot have two variables in a particular objective. It is always advisable to write an objective separately for the different variables you're find. Like, for example, you have an objective to find out the intelligence of the sample, intelligence of the group. You want to find out the attitude of the group. for a particular thing. All these objectives should be written as a separate objectives and not together. The reason why we have to write separately is because every objective has its own tools. Later on, you have to solve, to find out a solution to the objective, you have to choose an appropriate tool. And for the appropriate tool, remember, you have a appropriate, you get some certain data, and appropriate techniques of analysis has to be used. Hence, the objectives, if when you write the objectives, write it write it for a single variable at a particular time. If you want to, for example, if your variables to find out the difference between boys and girls on a particular aspect, yes, that is one objective. You want to find an association among particular variables, yes, you can go ahead with that. But when you want to find out the intelligence of a person, the attitude of a person, interest of the group, not person, of the group, etc., then you have to write the objectives one variable at a time, unless your objective is to compare the variables or to find association among the different variables, or you want to correlate the particular variables, whether there's any correlation you want to find out. Then that is how objectives have to be written, and it is very well explained in John Best and Khan and other books in C.R. Kothari too. Now, in social sciences, instead of writing the objective statements, they also write the research questions. Now, research question is in the form of a question mark. Okay, you write it in the form of a question and you put a question mark to it. And now, whether it is a research question or objectives, the next step is you have to write the assumptions and hypotheses. I'm sure other experts must have explained to you earlier also, but I would like to say a few things regarding this. Now, what is the difference between assumptions and hypothesis? Assumption is something both hypothesis and assumptions, both these things, where do we get it from? We get it from the review of related literature and researchers. Now, the literature very clearly tells us that there is a there is a very strong correlation between academic achievement and intelligence. Now, nobody will have to go ahead and do some research on finding out whether there is correlation between, whether there's high correlation or low correlation between intelligence and academic achievement. It is an accepted fact because literature has told us that. Sorry. Now, hypothesis also, where do we get the hypothesis from? Again, review of related literature. Review of related literature told you that in a particular context, in a particular group, there is high correlation between attitude and interest on a particular issue. Now, if that is from there, you want to find out in your research whether there is any correlation, whether there's high correlation or low correlation between these two aspects in your research. Then you say, either you make a null hypothesis and say there's no significant difference in the mean scores between this group and that group on a particular aspect. So whether it is assumptions or hypothesis, both of them come from our review of related literature. Then what is the difference? Then why should we write it at all? The main difference is assumptions are something that we cannot test at all. Like one example, very simple example, which I always give. People who hear me again and again must be bored of it, but it is very good for the newcomers or the new students. Like suppose it is very cloudy today. What is the assumption that we make? That it is likely to rain by evening. So if it is very cloudy, that is an assumption. But if it is cloudy today, that it'll rain today cannot be written as a hypothesis. For the simple reason, what happens is today, if it is very cloudy and it is likely to rain, is an assumption that I make. Suppose the wind comes and takes the clouds away from this region and goes somewhere else, it will not rain. So the assumption is something that we cannot test. Whereas hypothesis is a statement that we make, which is testable, which can be tested. How do we test it? You frame your hypothesis, and then collect your data accordingly, and then you use appropriate tools of analysis, and then you test it whether it is true or not, whether it is null hypothesis accepted or it is rejected. So you have a right. This is I'm not going to discuss here. You have a research hypothesis. You can convert it into a null hypothesis for the purpose of testing. It becomes easy when we write a null hypothesis, so that the rejection is easier. So I hope I made it clear the difference between assumption and hypothesis. Assumption is something that we cannot test, whereas hypothesis is something that we write in a research problem and we can test it among the groups for the different variables of the study. Now, after this, we have to write the delimitations that are laid. What is delimitations? Delimitation and limitations. In one of the chats, somebody had asked this particular difference in the previous talks. Delimitations are laid by the researcher. Delimitation is because any topic can be done as a research for years and years together. Okay, so if we are doing it for a particular research paper for a particular journal, there's a time limit. And if you're doing research for your MEd or your MPhil or a PhD, again there's a limit. So when there is a limit of time, and also the limit for the variables that you can use, the aspects that you can include, the variables. When I say variables, I mean the independent variables, the dependent variables, and the confounding variables. All these variables are part of your research, remember, on any particular topic. When we have to do research, if you have a limited time of 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, accordingly we have to delimit the working, delimit the variables of the study. Oh, something happened. Okay. So delimitations laid by the researcher. He says like data will be collected only from girls of Kolhapur city. Okay, it is confined to the particular city. Girls of English medium schools. Now English medium schools, there are so many schools and all the girls cannot be covered. So again we delimit further to only girls in section A in the schools of Kolhapur. Again, we delimit further. You delimit it to only girls of girls uh, of one particular section will be dealing with. Or it could be the delimitation could be only grantable schools, or the delimitation could be English medium grantable schools, non-grantable school, private school. The delimitation can be anywhere. You can have a manageable sample. Now, when we say manageable sample, we also have to remember whether your sample, Dr. Pandya had explained very well how you have to choose a particular sample for a particular population. Now, so you have, when you are delimiting your particular variables or your sample size, please see that it represents the population that you are selecting, you have chosen. So your delimitation should represent your population completely, but the variables that you take, you can delimit. Okay, so that is about what the researcher has to do by himself. For two reasons. It could be the time constraint, it could be the time constraint, and also there are another factor is your financial aspect. Like a person who has a lot of money can can appoint research assistants and cover the whole of India, pay them and cover the whole of India. But if you're doing research all by yourself, there's a lot of money involved in any research, unless somebody is funding you. Even if somebody is funding you, they fund you for a particular time period for 2 years and with a limited amount. So delimitations are laid due to the constraint of time as well as for the financial constraints, and also your energy constraint. How much can you do as a researcher? So this has to be considered. But whenever you lay the delimitation, please keep in mind that what is your problem. The delimitation should not affect adversely the topic that you've taken for research. The topic you have taken for your research should be covered properly. Now we come to the next thing, is limitations of the research. Now, after we write the delimitation laid by the researcher, we have to say the lim. So delimitation is we are going to do research only on the population we have selected, or the variables we have delimited. But then, in spite of when we are collecting data, there are some things that are beyond the control of the researcher. What is beyond the control of the researcher? Like, suppose I had decided to, after finalizing my sample size, I decided that I would be collecting data from 102 schools. 102 schools is your 10% of your schools in particular area. But 102 schools I write as a delimitation. But while I'm conducting, when we write the proposal, we write it a year back. And then later on, the next full year, what are we doing? We are either preparing the tools and other material we are preparing, doing review and preparing the research tools, etc. By the time I go to collect data, what happens is, out of the 102 schools, suppose 5 schools are closed down for some other reason. What has happened? I'm going to collect data now only from -5 school. It could be only 100 schools or 98 schools. So what happens is, this is the limitation of your study. The data you will not be collecting from 102 schools, but you will be collecting only from 98 schools. So with this data will definitely, it could affect your result. The result will be affected because of the limitations of your research. Because if those 5 schools were very good, it could have given a different result altogether. We do not know. That is why we say it is a limitation of the study. It is not only because of the sample size limitation, it could also be because some of the confounding variables we are not able to control. When we are not going to control certain variables, then what happens is, it could adversely affect the research results. So limitations of the research you have to write in your research paper. Otherwise, the person who is evaluating a research, or the person who is reading a research, will say, why the person has not done in this way or that way. If you write it was limitations of your research, they know, yes, you wanted to do it, but you could not do this particular thing because of this particular reason. So hence, it is very essential in a research paper to write the limitations of your research. The other essential elements of a research paper is the plan and procedure of research. Plan and procedure of research. In this, we write the type of research. You have to write the type of research. Which are the different types of research based on the data collected? It could be the quantitative research, or it could be qualitative research. A lot of talk has been delivered on this. So it could be quantitative data, quantitative research, or qualitative research, or it could be a fundamental research, or it could be an applied research. Now, fundamental research is done by the researchers to enhance the body of the knowledge, and it is meant for theory building. Actually, small researches that we do at the PhD level, or MPhil or MEd level is, and most of in the case of applied subjects like education, we go in for applied research, where we apply the theories of other disciplines in education. And what we do is, we find solutions to a particular practical problem that is there in the field. So we find solutions to practical problems in the field. But it is not action research. Definitely not an action research. Action research does not come in this action research. You cannot write a paper and publish. Action research is done. We cannot publish a research paper on action research for the simple reason, action research is a research that you do for a particular problem that you are personally facing in your environment, and that results of that particular action research is not applicable anywhere else. Whereas in the case of a fundamental research or an applied research, like I'll give you one example which will make it easy for you to understand. Like in the case of suppose there is a pest has been attacked a particular crop, and somebody wants to do research on the pest. So if the person does research in India, in a report, in maybe in Pune, there is a crop which was attacked by a new pest, and there is no pesticide for it. This particular researcher conducts research and discovers a pesticide for that particular pest. Now that particular, and to save the particular crop. Now this is an applied research, and the result of the research is applicable to the whole world. Whenever that particular crop, that pest attacks a crop or any other part of the world, that particular pesticide can be used. So applied research, the results of applied research is applicable for the whole world. Similarly, fundamental research, there's no problem. The new discoveries are made and they add on to the body of knowledge, and the new discoveries are applicable to the whole world because it is theory building. Now, research design. Now, research design, again, a lot of talk has been done wonderfully by Dr. Pandya ma'am and others too. Now, research design, whether it is a qualitative research, then what are the research designs that you're using for qualitative research? And if it is a qualitative research, what are the research designs that you're using? And if it is a mixed research design, yes, a lot of research now is mixed research designs we do, and multi-stage research design, which Pandya ma'am had explained to you. Yes, these are the research designs. Whatever your research design is, you will have to write it in your paper or in your thesis. Now, the next is the sampling design. Sampling design, yes, there are different ways of, more than 10 ways of simple random sampling design only. There are different 10 types. So sampling designs that you have to write in your paper, which is the sampling design that you have used, and you have to explain it very thoroughly about that. Now, sample. The size of the sample and the nature of the sample. Size of the sample, again, as was told earlier, see the population and go to Google and find out if this is the population, what should be the size of the sample. You can go ahead for the quantitative research. And for qualitative research, again, the sample size is very small, but it should be appropriate, which can be used to be, which can be generalized. Now, nature of the sample is something I would like to discuss over here. Nature of the sample is very essential to write. For example, one example that I would like to give you is like in the case of if there is a remote place in Maharashtra. There's a very remote place where there are, in that particular village, there are no computers, and you go to a particular school and try to find out computer awareness of students in that particular village. Okay, and you write a paper and you publish it, and you have not written the nature of the sample. You have described everything else of the sample, and you publish that paper. And suppose that paper has to be evaluated by a person in Delhi. Again, your internet is still working. Okay, sorry. The nature of the sample, as I was telling you. So if a person in Delhi is going to read the paper or evaluate your particular research, they will say this is all rubbish. How can a child of this age does not have so much of computer awareness? Your paper is totally wrong. It is false data that the person has created and he has published this particular paper. The paper will be rejected. Hence, if you write the nature of the sample, the area where you're collecting the data, that it is a very remote place where there is no computers, no electricity in that area. Naturally, he has very little, maybe he doesn't have a smartphone and other things in that particular village. Naturally, the computer awareness of that particular students will be very low. So this, if you write the nature of the sample, like when I write, when you're writing or doing some research dealing with financial aspect or the financial aspect, I always, if I'm collecting data from Kolhapur city, I always state it is a very rich, sugar belt. So the data is collected from a rich sugar belt. So natural, the responses that I'm getting from this area is definitely going to be different from the responses on the same topic I'll get from some other area where where they do not have this much of resources, so much of financial resources and other resources. So nature of the sample is very, very important for you to write. Otherwise, your paper may be rejected, or people will misunderstand that it is not a good risk, that it is not a authentic research. Now, sources of data, yes, somebody explained it, I remember. It could be your primary sources of data or the secondary source of data. The primary sources of data is where you go and collect the data yourself and obtain it. The secondary source of data is you're culling out the data from documents from other people. Like if you're collecting, if you're interviewing a particular person and collecting the data, fine. If it is a first-hand resource, but if you want to find about a third person, that you want to know about a third person from another person, then it is a secondary, then it becomes a secondary source of data. So if somebody wants to collect data on Vivekananda and then goes to another person, and what do you know about him, what have you read, it becomes a secondary source of data. If you're going to collect data from Vivekananda directly, Swami Vivekananda directly, then it is primary source of data. So the secondary source of data is from different documents and other people who are not directly related to this particular directly related to the problem. Okay. Now, tools used for data gathering. Yes, this was discussed. Now, the tools used for data gathering, I think you should be very clear whether it is, if it is a quantitative research, what are the tools that you're using, and it is qualitative research, what are the tools are you using. And here you have to write very clearly whether the tools you have developed it yourself or you are using a standardized tool. Now, earlier, I remember when we were submitting the thesis, when we use the standardized tool, the whole tool we used to put it in the appendix. The whole tool the standardized tool, but now it is not permitted to put, because most of the standardized tools are purchased, and somebody may misuse it. Without purchasing the tool, they may use the manual itself. So the manuals are not permitted to be put as appendix in the thesis now. But here, what you are expected to do when you write about the tool, if it is standardized tool, is you have to write the basics of the tool, like how that particular author has done, and how, especially how the raw data was analyzed in that particular tool, the analysis part of the how the in the standardized tool, how the data is analyzed, that you have to write very clearly. Now, type of data analysis, again, this was discussed yesterday, but in the case of quantitative data, what is the type of data analysis, for which type of data the analysis used, and qualitative data, how you collect that qualitative data, and what type of data is analyzed, how the data is analyzed in qualitative research was also discussed yesterday. Okay. Now, other essential element of a research paper is presentation of the data in tabular or graphical form. Yes, this is very essential in a research paper. You have to present data in tabular or graphical form. Now, the question is, in a research paper, if you've gone through the journals, you may have not found out a large number of tables. You may have not even found graphs, but some research papers you do find some tables and some graphs. Now, whether they are publishing your data in the tabular form or graphical form in your research paper in the journal or not, it is your duty as a researcher to submit it to the journal, because this whatever you're submitting, your research paper, this is what they're going to verify. This is what they're going to check. Who is going to check? The journal has an editorial board. They have an advisory committee. They have experts in the committee. They are going to send it to your peer group who is going to assess. assess your research paper. How are they going to assess the research paper? Only based on your data in the tabular form and the graphical form. So it is your duty to present your data in the tabular and graphical form along with your research paper as appendices. You can present it there. You can present it to them. Because the number of pages in a journal is small, they usually do not present the whole table in your research of the research paper. Okay. Okay. Now, in a research paper, what are the things that you have to submit? As I told you, when you submit your the research paper does not, like suppose you're doing qualitative research, it need not be only data. It need not be data in a tabular form, your t-test and SD and all that, not put in a tabular form. But but in a qualitative research also they have graphs. Okay, graphical form, some of the data is represented. So whatever how your data collect and how you have analyzed it, all that has to be sent into the along with the research paper as appendices. Now, why do we send it? Because that provides substance to your arguments. What is your argument? It holds up your assertion. You say, yes, the data was collected from this group of students and we found relationship between this and this variable in my paper. When you're making a statement, you're drawing a result, you're drawing a conclusion. What is it based on? It is based on some on an analysis they've done and put it on a table. Whatever assertions you're making, whatever conclusions you're making, you're drawing, that has to be supported by your documents. So that is what I'm saying about the tables and the graphs and other, like like in the case of qualitative research, it could be the photographs, pictures of recordings, it could be the tape recordings. If you have recorded somewhere, yes, submit these two recordings also to the assessors who are going to assess your paper. Okay. Now it is important to give sufficient evidential backing. This is what I'm talking about. All the evidence that you have collected, yes, give it to them. So what they choose, what are as per the requirement of the journal, they may present the evidence in your paper, or they may not, they may skip it. They may only give your how you conducted the research and your findings they may publish if it is good. Now, it is equally important to avoid redundant and excess evidence. Now, all of us know that when we go to collect data, when our students go to collect data, they go to collect data based on certain things, and they find related to the topic more interesting things. Okay, but if it is not a part of the objective of your research, all the important data that is there and which is of great interest to you, you know very well that you can go only once to that particular place and collect data. So there's a temptation for the researcher to collect more data, because you know nobody will pay you again to come over here, to come over to that place and collect data. So there's a tendency among people to collect a lot of data. Yes, go ahead and collect the data if it is of interest to you. What I would say as a research guide to my student is, go ahead and collect the data if it is of interest to you. But when you are writing a research paper, what are your objectives of your research? Only what is the objective of your research, you write the result of, you analyze that and write it in this research paper. All the extra evidences that you have collected, all the extra evidences that you have analyzed, write a separate research paper on it. But don't mix up, don't include unnecessary things, which is not a part of the objective. That will be not only a waste, but actually it's a distraction and is not accepted in any research journal or anywhere else. Even if it is in a thesis, we say all these unessential things, remove it and resubmit your dissertation or a thesis. Okay, hope it is clear. Now, essential components of a research paper. There is one thing called conclusions. Now, I always differentiate between conclusions and the findings of the result. Now, how do we differentiate between the conclusion, findings, and the result? Findings and results are the same thing. Results, from where do we get the findings or the results? We get from after the analysis. After we analyze something like your null hypothesis, accepted or rejected. So if it is null hypothesis rejected, you find there is a high correlation between boys and girls, or there is no difference between boys and girls on this. So boys and girls are equal. So that is a result that you got from your table or your analysis. Now that result is converted into conclusion. So the language of the finding is different from the language of the conclusion. This, if the researcher is clear, it will be very helpful to make a good research paper. Now findings are always the language of the finding is the language of the hypothesis, or of the hypothesis. In hypothesis, you have made a statement there is no significant difference between boys and girls on this on interest. So in the findings, that is the line. So finding, what will you say? Boys and girls are equal. Okay. In the conclusion is based, the language of the conclusion is always based on the objective. So go back to your objective and find out the intelligence of students. So you say the intelligence of this group of students is average or high or low. So the conclusions, the language of the conclusion, go back to the objective and write it in that form. Whereas in the case of the finder, from the findings only you write the conclusion, correct? Because when we analyze the data, what are we doing? How do we analyze the data? We collect the data for every objective. Then we analyze the data. After we analyze the data, we put it in the tables. So how do we write in the plan and procedure? We write the objective, and then I write the two hypotheses. For each hypothesis, I have a table. I have a separate table for two hypotheses. So below the hypothesis, what do I write? I write the observation and the interpretation. So the interpretation, I say there's no significant difference between the two groups. And so in the finding, I will say both the groups are equal. Then in the conclusion is to find out the difference between boys and girls on this. I said there's no difference between boys and girls on this as per base. That is the language of the objective. So this difference, this subtle difference, if you can make, you will be writing a good research paper. Now, discussion of the findings with reference to the literature and researches. Now, this is one thing that the discussion is one of the weakest point that we observe in a research, especially in a thesis or a dissertation. The weakest for this, and that should be the most important. That is one of the most important aspect of a research paper. And that is the weakest for the simple reason, especially for the mid level or a lower level. What happens is they discuss on whatever they feel. Their personal opinion is put over here. Your discussion is not a place for your personal opinion on the findings. From the conclusions only we have to discuss. So we have an objective. From the objective we got the conclusion, and from the conclusion we are supposed to discuss the conclusion. So you take one conclusion at a time and discuss. So how do we discuss the conclusion? You have to now go back to the review of related literature that you have collected. Now, remember one thing, why do we do research? We do research for the simple reason to enhance the body of the knowledge of that particular subject. So somebody has discovered that is the mechanical reasoning is very good in boys. Some research says that mechanical reasoning is good in boys. It is better in boys than in girls. Some research in 1980, they have found out. Now, in my conclusion, I found there's no difference between boys and girls. Today, I have found out that there's no difference between boys and girls in mechanical reasoning. Now, when I make the conclusion is there's no significant difference between boys and girls in mechanical reasoning, then how do I discuss this? I discuss going back to the research review and say, this thing, what you say, Sharma AK in 1981, in his study, he found that boys are better than girls in mechanical reasoning, whereas in this study, it is found they are equal. So my conclusion contradicts the research of is not in concurrence with the research finding of Sharma, whereas these researchers, if there are researchers which support your conclusion, whereas these the results, the finding conclusions of these researchers are in concurrence with my research study. So discussion is always done of the findings or conclusion with reference to the related literature. Only when you do the discussion this way, you are contributing to the body of the knowledge of the subject. Yes, in 1980s, yes, the boys were better than girls, but in 2020, the girls and boys have equal in the mechanical reasoning ability. So how there is a change in the society, how the education, it could be the education factor or other factors in society, which helped the making this particular change in the ability of the girls. So this is how a discussion should be made, not on what I think, what I believe, or my any other personal view should not be in a discussion in any research paper or in a thesis. Okay, now there is next you have to be writing about scope and significance of research and contribution to the knowledge generation. Now, what is scope? Scope of your research is, yes, remember one thing, we have delimited our study. We have delimited our study only to girls, only to that, and but we have done one thing is we have made a proper. When we collected the sample, it represented a population properly. It represented the population fully. So if it has represented the population fully, whatever data I have collected from that particular sample, I can easily generalize it to the population that from where I have collected the data, if it is representative. So the scope of the study will definitely go to the population. But if the scope of the study can go to the beyond the population, beyond that particular population from where you drew the sample, if the population, if there is another population elsewhere which is of similar nature to your population from where you collected the sample, from where you drew the sample. So like for example, I do research in Kolhapur city on the girls on a particular issue. So about Marathi medium on Marathi medium students. Suppose there is Marathi medium students in Belgaum, in Karnataka, and I will say the research, the conclusions of my study are applicable to Marathi medium students in Belgaum city also. Though I have not drawn the sample from Belgaum, I can easily apply it because all other aspects of the nature of the population is similar to this population. The context is similar. When the context and the nature is similar, then I can easily extend the scope to other populations too, as long as it is similar. Now, when we do, again you can unstable. Okay. Now, when we do PhD level research or any research, most of the time our scope of the research is limited to the population only. There's only one PhD research in the world, where the PhD research has become a theory. When does a research become a theory? When your conclusion is applicable to the whole world. So only one PhD result is applicable to the whole world. I'm not talking about other theories where people have developed over the years. I'm talking about a PhD level research in a limited time that is conducted. It is Kohlberg's model developmental theory. He did his research in America, and his PhD level research, his 6 stages of model development, is today applicable. It is applicable to the whole world. So the scope of his research is universal. Hence, his research finding has become a theory. So don't expect every research to become PhD level research to become a theory, contribute to theory building. But definitely your research should contribute to knowledge generation in your field, even if it is a local level. Maybe it contributes to enhancing a better, maybe a better way of teaching, a better way of using a particular device. So whatever you have found, maybe another person can use it in another place. So your contribution to the knowledge of the subject should definitely be there. It should also contribute, as I told you, to the benefit of the society. So whenever we deal with it, it has to benefit when deal with the result of a research, it has to benefit the society too. Okay, I'm going a little fast because I want to show you something else too. significance of the research. What is the difference between, please don't mix up limitation, delimitation, limitation, scope and significance. They're all independent. They're all different, different research concepts. It cannot be mixed in any way. Okay, like we have found out thesis where limitation is called delimitation, limitation. People really do not understand the difference. Now the scope is how far is your result applicable and how it can be used. Now what is the significance of research? Now significance is slightly different. Significant, the meaning of significance is nothing but importance. After you have done the research, remember you have done a research for a particular variable and you have done it for a particular population, for a particular, on a particular sample. Like you must have drawn a sample from students, you must have drawn sample from teachers, you must have drawn some, Sam, you must have you must have collected data from teachers, you must have collected data from students, you must have collected data from parents, etc. Now, whatever conclusions that you have found out is definitely applicable. It is significant. It is important for, it will benefit the students, the population of the students, it will benefit the teachers and it will benefit the parents. Now it will benefit the parents of the population. That is the scope. Okay, how far? Now it may also benefit other students, other parents, and other teachers if a similar population or a similar context is available elsewhere. So results of the significance of a study is related to the variables you have chosen, the data you have collected, and to the population or the sample that you're dealing with. Okay, so that is how we explain this. Now, a contribution to the knowledge generation, how important whether it definitely contributes to environmental education or it contributes to it contributes to teacher education. Yes, you have to be very clear about it. You have to mention how it's going to contribute. Now we lay out, you can lay out policy implication. Now this comes only if you have done a policy study. This you can make out, write in your thesis or in your research if you have conducted a policy study. Now, what do we mean by policy studies? It is all the policies that the government takes out. Like, for example, the midday meal scheme is a policy. Now, comprehensive evaluation, excuse me. Comprehensive evaluation was a policy that was then introducing English at the first standard or in the fifth standard in Maharashtra was a policy decision. Now, whenever a new policy is introduced in the field of education, people do research. But there's always a rule: when you want to do policy research, you have to wait for at least 3 years to find out the results of the policy. After 3 years, you can go ahead and do the policy implication. Now, when they introduced English in the first standard or in the fifth standard in Maharashtra, there was a lot of confusion, turmoil, because many schools were never teaching, and some rural schools were never teaching English at all. And suddenly the teachers had to teach English. The teachers were not trained to teach English in that school, nor the headmaster was prepared for it. There were no facilities, there were no equipment, there was no way of teaching English, so they were not trained. So you can do a research, if you have done such a research, then you can say what are the problems of teachers, what are the problems of parents, what are the problems the students are facing, what are the problems, so what the government should do. So policy implication is what are the problems that are happening because of this policy, and you can give suggestions on how the policy this policy can be implemented in a better way if the following suggestions are taken by the suggested by the researcher, if it is taken by the government. So you can lay out policy implications only if it is a policy research. Okay, then after you write the policy research, policy implications, you have to write the references. As I told you, like you have, whenever you're writing a research paper, you are quoting somebody, you are taking the result of somebody, or even in your review of related literature, you have mentioned A.K. Sharma 1980, and you have said Mathur 1960. If you have written this, definitely this has to come as a part of your references. Now, references you have, the A.K. Sharma should come from which book or which publication of his should be coming Mathur should come 1960 should be a part of your reference. Now, how do we write the references? I think in your course, they'll be explaining to you. APA style of references. The latest APA style, American Psychological Association. Generally in education, we use APA style of education and psychology, we use APA style of references. And this has to be written in the proper format. And the latest version of APA style, you can always go to Google and find out. And you can, that when you're using a single author of a book, how do you write the reference? If you're referring a research journal, how do you write? If there are two authors, if it is an edited book, how do we write? So there's a lot of difference in how to write references in using the APA style. But there are some other reference formats also, like MLA style is used by literature people, linguists use the MLA style. Now, very interesting aspect is where, so in the APA style, they give you a format, which we usually stick to in a thesis or this thing. But in the case of journals, in the case of research journals, every research journal has its own way of writing references. So how do we come to know about it? Go through the previous research articles that are published by the journal, and that style if you use, then they will accept it. Otherwise, the paper will come back to you and ask you to modify the reference part of your paper. So this you have to be very careful when you write the references. Now, other essential elements of the paper. Point out to further areas of research, unanswered question. This factor comes into the picture because we have laid out a certain delimitations. This particular research could have been studied in another way. Like one interesting anecdote I cannot tell you right now because of paucity of time. One thing about this is, like we do in the delimitation, we say we are conducting research from a psychological angle. Now, the same research could have been done by the philosophical point of view also. So, in one case, there was a case when a whole research was from the psychological angle, and then the person who was evaluating was from philosophy person. He said, no, this research should have been done in some other way. Then as the evaluators or the experts, we said, no, this objectives are very clear. It is from the psychological point of view. And in a PhD Viva, the argument took place. And then we had to, we as evaluators said that this thesis has to be accepted because he had laid down the delimitations very clearly, and this thesis is right. So you know that because of the delimitation, this research could have been done in more ways, in a different way. So you have to give further research areas, further areas of research, unanswered questions related to your particular topic, so that when somebody is going to do your review, you are already giving a suggestion saying, yes, I have collected data only from grantable schools. You can do this research on ungrantable schools too. So similarly, you can have, I've done this on water pollution, go ahead and do in this village on air pollution. So similarly, you can point out further areas of research or unanswered question. The other essential elements, I've got only 10 minutes and I wanted to present a little more. Okay, research ethics, I think Dr. Kavita Salunke ma'am covered it very well. Research ethics, now, who are when you write a research paper, remember, there's nobody with you to check your research ethics. Only when you're presenting a MA dissertation, MPhil dissertation, or a PhD thesis, where it is very formal, where there is a PhD, there is a research committee sitting over there. They check your title and say whether your research is ethical. They check whether it is going to harm a person psychologically, it's going to harm a person, or in any way, whether your objective is very sensitive, it will hurt a person, and then we ask you to either modify your objectives or change the topic. The Research Ethics Committee also does one thing, whether it is fit for research at the MPhil level or at the PhD level. Sometimes the research students come with a very broad problem and say, I would like to do research. We say, no, this is fit for a project, a major project of 10 years or 5 years. Then we say no. So the Ethics Committee sees whether this problem has already been studied earlier and this is a repetition of the problem. You're not supposed to repeat a particular problem. Then it is not called a research. And other ethical aspects is whether if you're going to repeat, then it is plagiarism. You're going to repeat the topic or part of the topic. So that has to be eliminated. Plagiarism is not the only unethical aspect, because the harm that you're going to do in society by your questions, by your objectives, or now there's a lot of argument, like a researcher, the dilemma in ethics, dilemma of a researcher is, I have found out these things, I would like to declare this, but if your result is going to hurt somebody, harm somebody, if it's going to create a social turmoil, if it's going to create riots, you are not permitted to publish your research finding. If your research is, because your research finding is on a very small sample, it cannot be applicable to the whole population. So on a very small sense, if it is going to create a riot in society, no, it is not. That is unethical. So ethics, when we deal with, we have to see that your research has to contribute to the body of knowledge. It should help your society to become better society and help the society to solve new problems. Okay, solve their problems. So research ethics is it is a lot of self discipline is necessary over here. Okay, everybody, the very reason why the UGC appointed the committee to prepare this material and to disseminate. There's a whole separate PowerPoint presentations on research ethics, on citation references, writing guidelines. All these are separate because a lot of research work has been done, and one has to be very careful on this. Citation and references, as I told you, you cite a lot of names and quotes and people you're citing. Everything should come in the references, and when you're writing the reference, it should be in the accepted format. Okay, writing guidelines and style, as I told you, it could be the APA style, MLA style, or whichever style the journal asks you to write. Expression and the language. Okay, your expression should be very formal. It should be remember, this is a formal publication. I have a gift of the gab, so I like to use loose language, which we call the loose colloquial language cannot be used in research. Actually, it lowers the quality of the researcher. It shows the poor quality of the researcher. Just because I know English, I write many things, irrelevant things. No, the expression should be, if you have good language skills, then what you write in 10 sentences, you can write it in single sentence in a very concise manner. Okay, creative presentation. Why? Okay, we have a format. This particular format has been prepared for presentation. While the structure is essential, rigidity is not. Like, we have given you this particular format. This format may change based on the journal too, or you want to add a little more something of it, but it cannot deviate much. Okay, following, why do we need a format at all? The very aspect that we need a format is because we write a research paper the way we did our research itself. It has a logical sequence of steps where the thinking, we do research in a logical manner. So our thinking, when we read a paper also, we have to think in a logical manner and understand the particular research paper. Otherwise, it is utter confusion. So while the structure is essential, rigidity is not. Following blindly can lead to boring papers. Like if you take a format and then put things blindly there, it will be a boring paper. All elements of a paper are needed. Like now the basic elements of the paper, which I have mentioned, every element is absolutely essential. Now the question is hypothesis essential in every paper? No. In some of the historical researches or in qualitative research, no, where there are no variables to compare, it's not an experimental study, you're not comparing variables, you're not going to see the differences, you don't have to write a hypothesis. But other elements, assumptions are definitely essential. If you're not writing the hypothesis, assumptions are essential because of the factor that you have read the review of literature and you know all the things about your topic. It says it, your assumption clearly tells us you know everything about your topic so far, and you're going ahead based on the previous knowledge of the subject. You're going ahead with a new problem based on the findings of all the previous researchers or knowledge in the subject. The arrangement and the manner of presentation should be creative. How you arrange this particular paper. But in journals, you cannot make your own arrangement. You have to follow the journals the way they do. Structure changes according to discipline or sources. As I told you, in social discipline, economics people may slightly vary, social sciences people may vary. Like one of the, when I was giving a talk somewhere, the social science persons, one person stood up and said, we collect data from all secondary sources and we write papers, we make papers. That time I told, for us it is half the research, because for us all the secondary sources of data is review of related literature, and this is not sufficient. We do a lot of empirical research. We collect the data directly and we correlate it, and then we complete this. So only deductive thinking is not involved. Research should be scientific, where both inductive reasoning, inductive thinking, inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning and scientific research is necessary for a good research. So yeah, sorry. The structure changes according to the discipline, and even the argument. Argument is whether you, how you justify it. Write your research paper, just 1 minute. Writing is simple and lucid. Jargons are limited to bare necessity. So don't use bombarding languages where the people cannot understand. Remember, after the abstract, I told you keywords you're going to use. What are the keywords? Like I say, height, weight, or it could be attitude. So what I as a keyword is nothing but your operational definition. I skipped explaining these things today because of paucity of time. So keywords are nothing but your operational definition that you use. So your jargon should be limited to bare necessity. Technical terms are explained, your keywords, okay, or operational definition. No redundant, unnecessary sentences. Be very concise, precise, to the point. So after you write the paper, final revision of the paper you can make only after discussion with experts or peer. Now, while concluding, I would like, my time is up, but I have two other presentation, the same formats, one for the PhD thesis and for the PhD thesis. One is of quantitative research, how to write a research report. Like a research report, all of us know, have preliminary sheets, and that will take another 3 hours to discuss. But I have made a PowerPoint presentation. It is only a basic thing. For quantitative research, how you would do, and for a case study research, how is the format done? There are 2 more PowerPoint presentations I have prepared and kept. I'll be passing on to you. I have no time to discuss that. I would have loved to, but no time to discuss. But I'm sure the discussion will be held by your research guides and the Bahai Academy, and with all the this thing. My presentation was purely for the new researchers who are, I wish all the best for your research, whatever research you're doing, and to write a good research paper, as well as do good dissertations and good PhD thesis. All the best. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.
Ma'am, can I request you? Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for so elaborately explaining the concepts of research paper writing with very minute details. I hope it's really going to benefit all of us. And with this, we come to the valedictory session of our workshop. And I would request Professor Dr.
Yes.
Upnani Madam to address the participants. Dr. Upnani Madam, over
Okay.
to you.
Yes. Are there any questions?
Ma'am, in the chat box, there are no questions, but if there are any questions from the participants, we can ask probably.
Okay. I can't see any questions. I can't see any questions, but one thing I can tell you, if there is any other time, anybody would like to ask any question regarding selection of topics in the same as of a thesis. Selection of topics is the same as of a thesis. No, selection of the topic for a PhD thesis or a dissertation depends on the level. Like for a PhD thesis, you have about 3 years to conduct research. There's a question here actually. PhD thesis, you have got 3 years time, and there's a research committee which is going to tell you whether that particular thesis is appropriate or not. Okay, whether the topic appropriately. Okay, I think some other time I can discuss, or if somebody wants to send an email to me, I can answer the questions to them any other time. I think it is your valedictory time right now.
Excuse me, ma'am, can we request you to please be there in the chat group time during in the evening 6 to 7? If it's possible to address the questions from the participants during that time in the evening session.
What time is it?
6 to 7
What
p.m.
time is it?
6 to 7 p.m.
Pardon?
6 to 7
6
p.m.
to 8?
7.
6,
6 to 7
one,
p.m.
yes, 1 minute. I couldn't follow you. Yes, time?
6 to
Or
7.
you put it
Madam,
in the chat. What?
Madam, it's 6 to 7. 6 to 7.
Okay, fine, fine. No issue, no issue. I got it. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Okay, now I can go. Now may I switch off?
But I am confident everybody is satisfied, madam.
Okay, thank you. Okay, may I now go? May I switch off the video?
Please wait for the validatory function, ma'am.
Oh,
I would
sure. That will
request
be a pleasure. I'd like to listen to all of you.
Rania
Yes.
ma'am to address
I'll
the
be.
participants.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll be there for the video.
I request Uplane madam to address the participants for the valedictory session. Uplane madam, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, respected Padmini madam, respected organizer, one of the organizer of this online research methodology workshop, Dr. Lesson Azadi, Dr. Kavita Salunke madam, and all other resource persons of the research methodology workshop, and of course assistant team from Bahai and dear participants of this workshop. We all know that the quality of any research depends on the understanding of the research problem. Also, the output of research activity significantly depends upon data collection and data analysis. Since we are living in a knowledge-driven society, which requires results of accurately carried and conducted research work. So, considering all these facts, and I think the beginning was International Conference on Social Cohesion, Baha'i Academy, Panchgani, and Department of Education and Extension of Savitribai Phule, Pune University planned to organize this 6-day research methodology workshop for research scholars and guides. This workshop commenced with a session by Professor Sanjeev Sonawne, Dean, IDS Faculty of Savitribai Phule, Pune University. He laid emphasis on various paradigms, types, and methods of research. On the second day, Professor Kavita Salunke, Director, School of Education from YCMOU, spoke on basic concepts of social science research, and it was really a block releasing session, I could say. On the third day, which was devoted to research designs, Professor Shefali Pandya, Head, Department of Education, Mumbai University, explained various research designs in her very interactive session. It was such a academic feast, I would like to repeat for all of us. Dr. Jyoti Bawne, Associate Professor, Indian Institute of Education, Pune, explained data collection tools and techniques with all details. Fifth day was devoted to data analysis. It was data analysis day, and qualitative and quantitative data analysis was uh, explained by Megha Uplane and Dr. Vaibhav Jadhav from Department of Education and Extension, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. And today, we all have experienced a great session, wonderful session on research report writing by Professor M.S. Padmini, ex-head Department of Education, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. It will work as a lighthouse for all researchers when they will be writing their research reports, either in the form of thesis, dissertation, or research papers for journals. Friends, this workshop was facilitated by eminent speakers from various universities and institutions. Uh, I hope it will help you all to choose right methodology pertinent to your research topics and research variables. The main objective of the workshop was to provide in-depth understanding of important research concepts, and I think it has been satisfactorily done during all the sessions in this online workshop. I think this has been achieved through these sessions, and all the sessions were followed by appropriate research activities performed after every session in the term of in terms of the activities given after each of the session. I hope the reflections of this workshop will be well developed, well planned, nicely conducted, and effectively communicated, as Professor Padmini said, disseminated researches in the coming years. So I thank Mr. Azadi for organizing this particular session. I thank all the respected resource persons as one of the organizers, and I also thank from the bottom of heart to all sincere participants. I wish all the best research for all researchers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, respected Professor Megaplane, Madam. Thank you very much. I warmly welcome you, Madam, to this valedictory program.
Thank you.
Of this 6 days workshop. It could not be become so successful without your full and wholehearted support, which always the Baha'i Academy prides itself in having such a wonderful collaborator and support like you, Madam, and the Department of Education and Extension of Pune University. I thank Dr. Padmini, Madam, for very wonderful session that you had. Um, it was amazing. I know the time was short, but you could cover really so much within the short time available. And thank you for offering to share not only this presentation, but also 2 more presentations with the participants. That's very nice of you. We will share it on the chat group for everybody to benefit. And today evening, if the friends have any more questions, they will ask you. And even later on during the course of conducting the research, whenever there is a guidance necessary, you give us the permission to contact you freely and seek your guidance. Thank you so much. Friends, on my behalf also, I should really express my deepest thanks to all the dear resource persons of this FDP. Dear Professor Uplane Madam mentioned their names, Professor Sanone Sir, Dr. Kavita Salunke Madam, Dr. Shefali Pandey Madam, Dr. Jyoti Bhavne, Madam Uplane herself, and Dr. Jadev Sir, and of course today, Dr. Padmini Madam. I think each one of the dear resource persons with the wealth of their experience and knowledge could really make the topic so easily understandable. So it was well delivered and well received. Thanks once again to all of you, dear resource persons. I also like to mention that we had in the, among the participants, we had participants from 4 countries. Of course, India with 11 states that were present here, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Kerala, Jammu and Kashmir, UP, Haryana, Jalgaon, Assam, Gujarat, and Bihar. And then we had from Dubai, from USA, and from Brazil. So truly, the intention to have a group of international voluntary researchers is being fulfilled by your participation from across the country and from other places, in the world. Of course, there have been another about 50 researchers also who are part of this team, but since they had already completed, many of them completed their training in research methodology, they did not participate in this workshop. But still we had many PhD holders who were present in the workshop. And I really like Dr. Uplana, Madam, I'd like to thank you really, all the dear friends, for your wholehearted and active participation. Now I'd like to address a few words to dear participants who have attended this workshop, because we really came here not just to get a certificate, but we came here with a much, much higher aim. And that was to really set in motion qualitative and quality research on one of the most important, challenges that humanity is facing today, and that is about social cohesion, social harmony. So from that perspective, all the participants mentioned, in the form that they would like to be voluntary researchers. And I think this is a very great achievement by itself, that we have a group of about 100 academicians from many places of India and beyond who are going to spare their resources, their time, and their energy and their intellectual powers to research on this most important aspect of our social life today. And I'm sure that your finding in your researches can help humanity. It is expected that we will all, produce such quality research papers that can be presented in an international webinar in the month of January 2021. Therefore, let me give you, friends, a sort of timetable for the next 3-4 months that is ahead of us, so that from now you are able to adjust your efforts and make sure you work within this time schedule. so that we can successfully, complete the tasks before us. As you all know, the focus of this research is education for promoting social cohesion. And as we discussed during the conference, we discussed three main aspects of social cohesion. We discussed the social perspectives of that. We discussed about the economic and developmental perspective, and we discussed purely academic perspective of that. Of course, under each perspective, there could be n number of themes, topics that you can pick up. Some of you have already chosen your topics. Some of you may like to choose now, as Madam Madam mentioned. If you like, we also can suggest some topics to you. And if you like, you can, pick some of them up, apply them to your situations, and then make sure that you are really doing a very focused research. So we expect, friends, that by 15th of October, that is 11 days from now, we will receive your research proposals. As it was discussed in the sessions, how a proposal is made. In fact, you made also a sort of practical proposal and submitted during the second day's workshop, but we expect that you will now prepare your final proposal, which includes your topic and background and your research design, etc., so that the research guides who are from India as well as abroad can comment on your proposals, that it will be of good start. So the deadline for submitting your proposals is 15th of October. Then you have got 1.5 months time, means till end of November 30th, to submit your full paper and the abstract for review by the reviewers, by the guides, who will also give you their feedback. In that connection, we encourage you to visit the blog that the Baha'i Academy started during the international conference. The blog is called Social Cohesion Edu, socialcohesionedu.blogspot.com. This will be put on the chat, group, WhatsApp chat group. You will see it. Please visit it, because the blog contains a number of articles that could give you a sort of mini review of the literature to just broaden your perspective of the issue. And then there are some questions that were put to the resource persons during the conference. And there are questions related to barrier to social cohesion, related to inclusive development and economics, related to education and academics. And there are also some additional links which are provided there of some ebooks and some other links that may be useful to your research. So once you submit your full papers by 30th of November, you will get the feedback by the guides immediately, and you are expected to submit your final papers by 30th of December. And we plan to have our international webinar during January 2021. And of course, during this period, you are welcome to remain in touch with the academy and the partner institutions with any question you have. If you feel that you require some additional training in the form of shorter workshops on any aspect of research and writing, please feel free to ask. We can always organize short workshops of 2 hours, 3 hours, more or less, so that you really enhance your capability of research. And once your papers are approved and you present it in the webinar, they'll be published in peer-reviewed journal, research journal with ISSN number. The second question, the second request I have is that there is a feedback related to this workshop, and you're requested to please fill the feedback form completely and submit it. That is very valuable in organizing, future workshops for you. There are also some guidelines will be shared with you, friends. Guidelines related to writing your research paper, related to how to follow APA referencing, and some other guidelines that we'll be very happy to share with you. Well, we are going to again meet today evening from 6 to 7 p.m. With some of the dear resource persons present, and Dr. Rupan Madam, as well as Dr. Padmini Madam also will be present. So please feel free to ask any question that you like. And if you like this WhatsApp group to continue, also please mention. You can mention even now in the chat box if you like the WhatsApp group to continue. Otherwise, we can remain in touch through email group.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Madam. Let me express my deepest gratitude once again to the Department of Education and Extension, Savitribai Phule, Pune University, to all the dear resource persons, to all the dear partner institutions in this project, Shivaji University, SNDT University, YCMOU. We have international partners, IIOPM, Australia, ACME, Russia. We have IEF Geneva. We have Westminster College, USA. So this is, friends, a wonderful opportunity for all of us to be partners, to work together on this topic, which has great value for humanity. I request you also to put your attendance in this final, session of the workshop. If Uprade Madam would like to say any concluding remarks, you're most welcome to please say, Madam.
No, sir. Everything went well, sir.
Yes, God bless you. Thanks to you and to the whole team of Pune University Education Department. And Dr. Padmini would like to say anything? We can't hear you, Madam. I think you are muted. Okay, maybe we can't hear Padmini Madam because she's...
Azadi, sir.
Yes,
Azadi, sir.
Yes, Madam.
You have given me an opportunity to say something in this workshop along with both of my research guides, Professor Sanjeev Sonam and Professor MS Padmini Madam.
Oh my God. So wonderful. So wonderful. So God bless you, Madam. God bless
So
you.
it was an opportunity for me, sir.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wish all the researchers all the best, and all of us need to improve. We have to do a lot, all of us. There's always scope for learning and doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very nice. Any of the members of the Bahai Academy team, do you have, would like to say anything which I might have missed out? Dr. Gaikwad Madam, Dr. Gulbare Madam, Mrs. Saili, any of the team members would like to say anything which I might have missed out?
So I would like to share my actually gratitude for holding this particular workshop, and it has been really enriching, and the knowledge generation has been fantastic. Thank you so much to all the resource persons. They have really explained us right from I know it probably might be really for them from really from A to Z they have taken us, but it was really nice, important, and lot of concepts have been clarified. So thank you so much, and thank you once again to our team as well, and the Pune University team for conducting this wonderful workshop. Thank you, sir.
May I say a few words?
Yes, Gaikwad Madam.
Yeah. Very good evening to one and all. And sir, I congratulate you You know how long, since long we were trying to have research methodology workshop. My God, since so many months, I would say, we were trying. And finally, thanks a lot to Plane Madam. It was because of her we
Oh,
could
madam,
succeed in this. And
it's a joint
secondly,
venture, madam.
yeah, and secondly, all the resource persons. It was so nice to see Padmini Madam after a long time here on the dais, and we could hear her. Such a nice deliberation she did. And I hope that all our participants will be able to write good research papers. They will be able to do good research also. There is no need of very technicality, as Madam has already said. We are going to do research for on social cohesion. So all of us will be doing very well, because you have been developing your research proposal, you have been submitting your assignments. Those who have not will be doing again, they will be submitting. So we will have very good research papers, Padmini Madam. We will definitely like to share with you afterwards. And thanks to one and all again, to Plane Madam, the whole Shivaji University, and all the resource persons and my colleagues also. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gaikwad, Madam. So with these two votes of thanks, let us conclude now this 6-day workshop, and we look forward to remain in touch with all the dear participants and their resource persons. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you so much.